Well, hello, all of you wonderful people out there. I have a very serious subject today. Term limits are serious, but today we're going to get really serious, but you're going to enjoy it. I have on a jacket today. It might be covering up the A or the I. And as you can see, the A is purple and the I is purple and it fades into amber in the middle. But if you ever wondered why the A in 80 and the I are purple, is because in American politics, a purple state is a state that can go Republican or Democrat. Uh, and 80, we don't care about the Republicans or the Democrats. We only care about correct policy and we, the people, regaining some of the power we've lost over the decades. We, the people, those people that have more wisdom than the people in Washington. And we've proven that. We talked about the needless wars. We've talked about the $35 trillion deficit. If we, the people, had a vote in that, there wouldn't be any. But today we're going to talk about why term limits, just another reason why term limits are so darn important. First of all, fundamentally, it's going to get Washington's attention that we, the people, are alive and well, and we, the people, need to be heard, and we, the people, need to have our will imposed on this nation. 80 is the dispositive authority on term limits. Okay? When we display some unity and stop voting for people like Grassley and Schumer, these people have been in 25, 35, 40 years. No. Nobody should be in that long. Two and you're through. Two terms and you're through. Never vote for a person for a third term. I don't care what you think about them, whether you think they're great or whether you think they're mediocre or whether you think they're terrible. Never vote. If they're terrible, don't vote for them for a second term. Hey, think about it. If they're terrible, why should they even get a second term? But I digress. Term limits are directly connected to life and death. And I'm going to tell you why. Term limits are we the people's ability to rein in crazy, destructive policy that may be coming from the head of your country. Let's just talk for 1 second about the Ukraine. Nobody in Russia, the citizens of Russia, would not want their country to invade Ukraine. I bet you if you took a real honest poll, not one that's intimidated by Putin, but if you took an honest poll, you'd probably find like 97% of the people of Russia did not want to go into Ukraine. If you took an honest poll in Iran, you'd find a majority of Iranians, and these polls have been taken. It's an underground thing because the iron hand that the Ayatollahs rule with. But the young people, the sane people in Iran, would never want to launch or start a war against Israel. They may not like the Jewish people or the Jewish state, but to start a war against them where, history has not favored well for people who start wars with Israel. Usually the people who start the war against Israel end up way worse off than the Jewish state. So the people of Iran would not like to be sending all their money to Hezbollah or Hamas to attack Israel. So we, the people in those countries, have lost control. Okay? There's been a Cold War going on in the Korean peninsula for decades and decades. The people of North Korea would never invade the people of South Korea if it were up to them. But there's a Cold War, and a lot of their resources are going toward military buildup for a war with South Korea, and they have no reason to fight South Korea. The people of South Korea would never launch an unprovoked war against North Korea. The people of South Korea are too busy making Hyundais and Samsungs and LGs, and they're living a capitalist. Let's make money. Let's raise our family. They're just living, and they would never want a war. If you go around the world, you'll find out that we, the people, don't want war. Then why do we have so much war going on? It's because we, the people, have given up our power. We give it to people, either to dictators. They rise to power and get their army behind them, and that's a tough situation, I'll admit it. But in a country, a so-called democracy such as the United States of America, we have given up the power. You know, we have just given it up. We let Washington, D.C. do whatever they want to, even though it's wrong, even though it's stupid, even though it makes no sense. Term limits are a matter of life and death. If we can institute term limits, then we can rein in Washington, D.C. Life and death. 58,000 American soldiers died in Vietnam. And then what did they do at the end of the Vietnam War? Well, if you're under 50, look it up in your history books. We let 58,000 of our people die in the jungles of Vietnam, and then we left without achieving the so-called objective. In other words, 58,000 people died. Americans died. I don't know how many Vietnamese died. Maybe 500,000. Who knows? I don't know. But 58,000, let's keep it in the U.S. right now. 58,000 United States soldiers died and hundreds of thousands wounded for a war that should have never been fought. And we, the people, let them get away with it, and then re-elected the same clowns who authorized the war. Fast forward, George W. Bush declares a war on Iraq, Saddam Hussein. You know, Saddam Hussein was keeping Iran in check. He really was. Shias and Sunni, both Muslim countries, but one Shia, one Sunni, and hate each other for decades, and they kept each other in check. So George W. Bush sends American troops to Iraq. Iraq wasn't attacking us, wasn't about to attack us. They said they had weapons of mass destruction. They never found them. Many people think that was just a ruse, a pretense for the attack. I'm not sure if it was or not, but they didn't find them. But you know what did happen? Almost 5,000 American soldiers, your brothers, sisters, sons, and daughters, died. 200,000 injuries. And I'm talking about loss of limbs, PTSD. I mean, it was ridiculous. And then hundreds of billions of dollars, taxpayer dollars, your money. We the people. You learned last time the government's broke. They don't have any money. When they say something's free, or they say we're going to fund something, or we're going to send Ukraine something, they're sending them your money. Remember that. Iraq should have never been fought. What happened? We left Iraq with a propped up government that couldn't hold it together, and we get ISIS, and now we have lawlessness, and we have, you know, uh, the, it's just a mess in the Middle East. After we spent hundreds of billions of dollars and lost hundreds of thousands of body parts and 4 or 5 thousand American soldiers died, it's worse off. Do you understand what I'm saying? We, the people, would have never authorized that war. We have to make ourselves more assertive in the decision making process in Washington, and we do that by term limits. Let Chuck Grassley and Chuck Schumer, let the Chucks up Chuck, get the Chucks out of. Don't vote for the Chucks. I don't. This is not about Republican or Democrat. See, that's just a ruse, a game. Okay, I don't care anything about the Republicans or the Democrats, and you shouldn't either. They've got you brainwashed into being into one of these clubs. Forget the clubs. I don't care about the Democrats or the Republicans. I care about correct policy. Okay? I care about the next war being started. I care about the right policy toward energy, or the right policy toward hey, the economy. The economy affects us all. So we need the right economic policy. We need the right law enforcement policy. Okay? Hey, crime needs to come down. Okay? Nobody wants to live with crime. We can all agree with that. There's too much crime, especially in our large cities. Too much. Right? We can all agree on that. We can all agree that we want a great economy where people can earn and take care of themselves and not have to depend on the government. Who wants to depend on the government? I mean, good grief. And when you're dependent on the government, who are you depending on? We, the people, the taxpayers. The government doesn't have any money. They're supposed to have all of those decades and decades of Social Security money put in a lockbox. They're supposed to, but we don't really know if they do or not. You know, I've been paying into Social Security for decades. You've been paying for decades. Your grandma or grandfather may have paid for decades and decades. That might be the only money that's not coming directly from the taxpayers. But we are, in a sense, funding Social Security right now for the people who are on it. Listen, we, the people, have to institute term limits. As I've showed you, it's a matter of life and death. 58 people died who didn't have to. 58,000 in Vietnam. Close to 5,000 in Iraq. Those are just two examples. And, this we the people thing works in Russia too. Putin shouldn't be running that country. He's a dictator. But you know what we're becoming in the United States of America? We're becoming a dictatorship by committee. These committees get together in Washington and shove crap down our throats that we don't want. Just like a dictator. The only difference is Putin does it singularly and Washington, D.C. does it by committee. It's still a dictator until we take back some control. And term limits is the best way to do it. It's the bloodless. It's the peaceful. It's the right revolution. You don't have to raise your voice. You don't have to get banners and signs. You don't have to burn the flag. You don't have to march in the streets. All you have to do is stop voting for anyone for a third term. Believe me, you will get the whole world's attention. And you will have a lot more to say about policy in your state, in your city, and ultimately in your country. Term limits, anyone except the incumbent. And we've defined who that anyone is. of we the people, someone who's going to do the will of we the people, because there is wisdom in the crowd. How many of you run your household like this? Well, I see something I want to do. I want to go buy a boat, so I'm going to put it on a credit card. Oh, I think I want some land that I may build an apartment building on one day. Go put it on the credit card. Um, a friend of mine needs some money. Go charge 10,000 on a credit card. Go keep charging. Okay, now all of a sudden, the interest on your credit card is more than your food bill. The interest on your credit card is more than your house note. The interest on your credit card is more than your rent. Who thinks that's a smart way to run your household? Okay? Well, that's the way Washington, D.C. has been running amok for about 20, 30 years. They've been running amok, running these deficits. And now they're 35 trillion, and the interest from last I heard, we're paying more on the interest of the deficit than we're paying for defense. Now that's what I heard. I'm going to check that out to make sure. But I can tell you this, and this is a bona fide fact. If you don't stop these people in Washington, they're going to go to 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40 trillion, 45 trillion, and one day the interest on the debt is going to be more than they can extract from your paycheck. You heard me. We're going to be in a position where all the tax money that they can take won't cover the interest on the debt, let alone paying down the debt. Now, there's a way to pay down the debt. It's called cutting some costs. It's called getting rid of waste. It's called everybody paying their fair share. There are lots of ways, and there are brilliant economists in the United States that have put forth plans that will probably work. But I told you, those people who need to go in Washington, those Grassleys and Schumers and some of these other people who just been there too long, Pelosi, oh my goodness. Some of these people, and don't get it twisted, this isn't about Democrat or Republican, okay? Deficits have spiraled under both sides of the aisle. When both sides of the aisle had control, the deficits have blown up, okay? So, listen, people, we have got to stop voting for incumbents. Just because they raised $25 million and had this great campaign, or because they intimidated, just like they did in this against Biden. They intimidated everybody who wanted to run against Biden, and nobody got to run against Biden, so they didn't have a real primary. See, that's Washington control. We the people should have been able to vote for, if we choose to vote Democrat, we should have been able to have a Democrat primary. Why should we have to have chosen Biden? You understand what I'm saying? You know, the Republicans, they did, to their credit, they had a primary, and people got to run against the front runner, or the presumed winner. But they didn't even let people run against Biden. And see, we the people, we need to stop that kind of crap, because then we are handing our will over to the people who are just plain stupid. I'm sorry. Someone told me that sometimes I talk too harshly about Washington, D.C. But think about this. The people in Washington, D.C. gave us 60,000 deaths in wars that shouldn't have never been fought. They gave us $35 trillion deficits. People in Washington let a spy balloon from an adversarial country fly over the entire United States, and when it gets all the way across the United States, then they shoot it down. They're stupid. I mean, come on. What's give me another word for it. They the wisdom of the crowd. We the people. We need referendums on a lot of these things. Unless a country is just attacking United States interests around the world or attacking the United States physically at the homeland, there should be a referendum. We, the people, should get to vote whether or not we go to war. It shouldn't be left up to those 500 people who are beholding to the K Street lobbyists. Remember those people. They have $4.5 billion to spread around 535 people. The K Street lobbyists. They aren't given that $7-8 million per congressman and senator. They're not giving that money away for nothing. Some of them represent the industrial complex that make a lot of money during wars. Okay? Some of them represent the electric car industry. Some of them represent social issues. Hey, they represent everybody except for we the people. We don't get to spread $4 billion among the Congress people. Okay? The K Street lobbyists do. So, I'm going to wrap this up. Term limits, a matter of life and death. And I just explained to you how, if you know somebody who died in Vietnam or died in the Iraq War, then you know every state should be a purple state. Whichever party produces the most correct policy for our time is what you should vote for. If the Democrats produce the correct policy, vote Democrat. If the Republicans produce the correct policy, vote Republican. The policy that is going to enhance your life and my life in the United States of America. And I'm going a little long. I'll see you next time, and we have another interesting topic concerning term limits. Bye-bye.